been a physical therapist for, more than 30 years. Ages me a little bit, I guess. I got my DPT originally from the University of St. Augustine. I got my PT degree actually in the Netherlands. I did my PhD at Nova, did my fellowship in manual therapy at Regis University, and then did some additional certification to St. Augustine. And I came actually to Florida Gulf Coast about 10 years ago, and I became program director maybe 4 years ago. I'm also the department chair of rehabilitation sciences and the department chair of health sciences. So most of you guys doing your undergrad probably are in a department like mine. So I have a little bit of knowledge about that side as well. But I think it's great that you all are interested in physical therapy from a professional point of view, right? I think it's exciting, laying out your career and picking out that maybe that program where you want to go to. So that's a nice process as you start orienting yourself. What I tell everybody, and I don't really care where people go, I just want you to become a PT, right? And make some changes for people in the future. But when you look for graduate school, what are the things that you might want to look for or think of? First of all, are you going to stay in state? Are you going to go out of state? For a lot of people, especially in today's world, cost is very important. And coming out in the working field with a youth that could be very limiting, for instance, right? So that might be a motivation for people to pick certain programs. Um, if you like big football games, if you like big weekends, then we obviously are not your city, right? We do have a little bit of a basketball team, male and female, but we just can't compete with the big schools, obviously. If you like being close to the beach, we're about 20, 25 minutes from the beach, if that's important. So lifestyle, I think, is something you should definitely look for. Another thing is, where is the family situation? Are you going to be close to family? Do you want to be far away from family? So there's a lot of factors that people can think of making some of these decisions. And I think you should look at the whole picture, not just necessarily the school itself, but everything around it is because, you're going to spend somewhere, anywhere from, 8 semesters to 6 semesters, different forms of PT education nowadays. But you're not spending 2 or 3 years at the location. The outside school situation needs to be good because going to grad school is a lot different than going to undergrad. The pressure is high, the time you invest is high, the projects you have to do outside of school. Our students are in on campus Saturdays, Sundays, evenings, right? So you really need to make sure that you look at the whole picture. That's probably the best advice I can give you. So obviously, physical therapy is a very, very good choice. When we're looking at the projections, and I probably don't have to convince you all because you're sitting in this Zoom call, but looking at the south of the country and the west of the country, just kind of just some stats for you here. That up to the years 2000 and 2030, the supply is going to far be below the demand that we need, right? You obviously all in Florida at the moment. Florida numbers are worse than this in general because we have an aging population in general. People come here later in life and need services, all kind of services as it comes down to PT. Now that PT is really taking a stronghold at different arenas like acute care, emergency room, the demand for PT will continue to rise. So it's a great career choice for you. Um, Now, as you might know, I would assume you've oriented yourself for those that are ready to apply, but the application is generalized to a centralized application process called PTCAS. The nice thing about that is you put all your information in PTCAS, you pick the universities that you want to apply to, and it's all done in one spot versus applying at 5, 6 different schools. The average um, number of schools that people applied to in the PTCAS system last year was 3.67. So most people obviously able to increase their chances, but that's probably data you guys already have. Um, Now, talk about affordable. We always kind of hate to say this, but FGCU is the cheapest school in the state. We compare to some other schools, maybe in Texas. Now, cheap for some people that means also bad. Um, I mean that's for you guys to judge. But we are about 24,000 below the average cost of CAPT accredited programs. Okay, here's a breakdown for you. So our whole program for a Florida resident would cost you $42,000, almost like $43,000. And that's just though tuition cost. Of course, the university has some additional costs, like every university is like technology, that kind of stuff. As a non-Florida resident, it's 149. So that's a good $100,000 difference between the in-state and out-of-state student. Our in-state tuition rate, including some of the stuff except housing, is 373, and without is $290, which again is a very low rate. These rates, in case you happen to know or interested in it, are not determined by us. They're actually determined by the state. Now, cheap, but still good, right? So we're actually one of four programs in the country who had 100% passing rate in the last 2 years. So if you look, we have a graduation percentage of 93.3. So 93% of the students that start our program finish our program, and 100% of those students actually pass the first time um, on their exam at the FSBPT national exam. Now, if you can see the numbers, I got to change my screen a little bit to talk about this. So if you look at like this year's class, to give you a little snapshot, we had 27 students. Our mean score was 716 out of 800. The average school scores in the United States was 667, so we're sitting quite a bit higher. Last year we had 5 of our students out of 30 score 800 out of 800. This year we had 2 that had 800 out of 800. So we're doing quite well. The last couple of years, especially because the exam has changed. I don't know if you guys noticed, but it is now more what we refer to as a problem-based questioning versus a fact knowledge questioning. And our program is very problem-based learning. So I'll talk about that in just a little bit. Oops. So our program is 3 years. It's 115 credits. We have a mix of, I would say, online/hybrid classes, and then we have a whole bunch of stuff on campus. We pretty much have about 45% online, and we had that way before COVID. That's how the program was originally designed. But we have some traditional, we don't really do traditional lectures anymore, but traditional classroom activities with a lot of active learning strategies and problem-based learning. That's kind of what we really center our education around. Our admission portal is open now. It starts in July, like July 10th or so. And we would like the applications, all application materials, to reach us by November 15th. And an official date, I think, is December 1st. Just to give you ideas about timeline. Now, when you go to the application process, we have made it very straightforward. We have some admission criteria. We do still take the GRE. And so a lot of programs that kind of have stepped away, some are coming back to the GRE. One of the challenges programs have is to determining those students that can do well in your program. And we still have a correlation that we found that certain components of GRE are somewhat predictive for how people do in PT school. So we have changed it a little bit starting next year. So we have on the written part of the GRE, we're going to drop the score from a 4.0 to a 3.5. It's a little bit more in line with the national trend. And then the quantitative and the verbal portions of the GRE are 35%. So when you think about the 35 percentile is not the highest number that one could potentially, you say, well, why are we only going at 35%? Surprisingly, that's a challenging rank for a lot of people to make. It seems like a GRE score has changed a little bit over the last couple of years. So it's, those numbers are, when you look at national averages, that's kind of where the health professions is in general, not just PT, kind of where the average lays. So we continue with 35% out. Now, obviously, you need a bachelor's degree that you all know, and our prerequisites, and they're pretty similar across the board in the state. So that shouldn't be a big problem for you. And we do look at GPA. When we look at all your prerequisites, GPA needs to be a 3.2. The average last year was a 3.5. And then we have all coursework in the upper division is a 3.0. and we had like maybe a 3-4 on that one. Now, the way we do it is we rank people. So we take the GRE, we take the GPA, and that creates a mathematical score for us. We have a certain formula we use for the last 10 years, and that ranks people. If you meet 3.2, 3.0, and the GRE scores, you are guaranteed an interview. So we interview way more people than the class size. And the performance of the interview then goes also into a score, and that ranks people, and that's how we hand out admission offers. Okay, so in that admission process, so we spend about, I would say, you come to campus about 4.5 hours for an interview round. We have some group activities that we do. You meet all the faculty members because we believe it's not just us matching you, it's also you matching with us. I think it's very important that you feel that FGCU is the appropriate school for you. So we give a lot of time for you to interview us at that same time as we want to get some more knowledge about you as a person. So when you finally get into PT school and you come, our curriculum is kind of divided in a couple of pillars I'm going to talk about. Now, it's kind of funny because people say, "Well, PT school is hard." It really isn't, right? The problem is it's just too much to learn in a short period of time. But it's not like math, or you think about your Chem 2 or your physics. Those can be tough classes. This is all pretty straightforward stuff. There's just too much to know in healthcare anymore, and that's what your challenge is going to be, and that's where you're going to spend a lot of your time. That's why I see most students struggle to make that transition from undergraduate to graduate. So, word of wisdom, if you can start thinking about what you learn in every class now, you pass your class, you get rid of your book, you go to the next class, and you keep going. In PT school, the way we run our program, what we teach you in day one, we could examine you in year 3, and you better remember, right? Because what are you going to say to that patient? Oh, well, that's 4 years ago. I don't remember that anymore. So we really expect you to have fact knowledge all the way through, and that's where the challenge really lays. We do have a spiral curriculum, meaning everything comes back at least twice. And we have 6 pillars. So let's talk about those real quick. We have a movement science track in semester 1, 2, and 3 primarily. And this is where we do a full body dissection in semester 1. Semester 2, we do our kinesiology and physiology, and especially physiology of disease. And semester 3 in the summer, we do our neurology component. So that's where we talk about the brain, the pathways, the nervous system, to tie everything together. We have a track, it's called Differential Diagnosis and Pharmacology. So you're being introduced very early on to the introduction to pharmacology. In imaging courses, we could spend quite some time nowadays using musculoskeletal ultrasound. That's the top right picture here for you, where we have an ability to look inside the body and kind of look what happens during movements. We have about 10 units that our students play with, just to get an understanding of visualizing biomechanics. Pharmacology comes back in the second year, spring semester, just at the next level, more related to pathology as well. We have our physical therapy track, which is pretty much 8 semesters long, where we introduce you to the practice of physical therapy, and we do that on a case-based learning process. And in that case-based learning process, we have 24 different cases, from pediatrics to geriatrics to stroke patients to orthopedic patients, to make you really kind of pool knowledge together. So we do not do a linear curriculum. But that, I mean, think about when you do biology or you do physics, you start on chapter 1 and you work your book till the end of the book. That's not what we do. We take little pieces of orthopedics, of neurology, pediatrics, physiology, and go on. And we take that and we bring that back every time. So you have to go back in that material every time. Some programs you might get orthopedics 1, 2, and 3, and then it's done, right? And then you move to neurology, and then you move to geriatrics and whatever it might be. We have a model where everything comes back, so you can keep tying it together and keep your knowledge sharp. So when you look at the problem-based learning, what we base, and it's really kind of a modified form of problem-based learning, but pretty much we have a case, a patient situation, and based on that, students identify what they don't know and what they should know. And that's what guides their learning. So it's a conceptual scaffolding of knowledge that you work on so that you can be in a situation that when you have a patient and you might not know exactly the fact knowledge, that you can find the answer and how would you do that. That's a little different than the traditional school where we provide you the information, you memorize it, and then you're being tested on it. Um, Research shows that traditional learning does a little bit better on standardized testing, right? Because you're so trained in learn and repeat. However, problem-based learning does much better in the clinical setting, and that's what you're going to be doing the rest of your career. So that might be beneficial. And you see a lot of medical programs across the world who have gone to this problem-based learning model. We do have a professional development track. We find it important that people understand that there's more than patient care directly. So we have classes on teaching and learning, social cultural related situations one could become involved in when you see different type of folks in the patient care. We have management leadership. We do actually medical Spanish. It's one of our summer courses in the first year. And then we have ethical legal as a class. You need to understand the legal consequences of what you do as a provider, what your ethical responsibilities are. So you spend quite some time discussing some of those issues. In the management class, we actually do, you have to make a non-for-profit proposal. So just a business idea. So you get a little bit of training in business management as well. We do have quite involved research track throughout the program. Starts in semester one, ends in semester eight. You'll be introduced in the first year in doing a background literature review on an assigned, well, it's not really an assigned topic, on a faculty related topic. In semester two and three, you develop some research questions and do some statistics around the idea of what you're going to be doing. And then semester four, you actually roll in a formal proposal of a research study together with your faculty member, and that research you're actually going to do. And that results into a final product, which would be a final paper, and preferably publishable poster you will be making and presenting at the Southwest Florida FPTA chapter meeting as part of the graduation requirement. We have a 34-week clinical rotation track, and our students in semester one start being involved with some of the clinet components. You'll be assigned a mentor in the community, and you have a 10-hour requirement to spend time with that mentor and just learning about physical therapy. And we assign you certain questions that you need to find out. In the spring and summer of the first year, you go out to clinic 4 hours for 10 weeks, just to kind of observe. We have found that if you if you place the clinical experiences throughout the curriculum, it drives home why you're learning what you're learning. You start connecting the dots a little faster, and it makes sense. First full-time clinic for 8 weeks is in the fall of the second year. Then in the summer of the second year, it's 16 weeks. And then we go into the final semester where you also again do 15 weeks of the whole semester. You go on your clinical rotation. And then you come back for on campus for 2 more weeks to kind of wrap things up. Um, We at Florida Gulf Coast, we are very involved in service. I don't know if you know this, but our undergraduate requirement for a bachelor's degree is 80 hours of community service. Our students have been very much involved in the community, and they do a variety of projects, and that's things that we as faculty don't necessarily make people do. But it's good to see that people going to health professions care. So you see some pictures here of post-hurricane cleanup, but our students do beach cleanup. They go to Special Olympics. We just had Adaptive Sports Day. We do a disaster day at Florida at a university, and people just volunteer for these things to be engaged in some other activities than just the direct schooling. We do have some special interest group, kind of like what you guys have in this group. So we have a neurology group, an orthopedic group, and a pediatric group, and they organize things outside the curriculum, just advance their knowledge. They bring in speakers. So it's quite an involved group. This is completely student driven, so it depends on interest of folks. And a faculty member is assigned to each group just to make sure that we're staying on the legal, ethical side of things. We are working on creating some medical missions. It's a little challenging sometimes. We are looking at the Amazon Peru for this year's group, and that could be very meaningful at the end of the summer semester before the fall starts, to go out there and give back to other communities that don't have much ability and access to help. So that's an up and coming program for us. And then, of course, PT school is a bit uphill, but very doable. So the nice thing about it is once you're at the finish line and you complete your degree and get that DPT and your license, everything is behind you and you're moving forward. You'll have a great career in such a variety of professions nowadays that PTs can be involved in, anywhere from management to business owning to working in inpatient hospital. I mean, it's such a great variety. And that be the exciting part of your journey. So let me stop here and I'll stop sharing my screen and I can answer any questions anybody might have.
I actually have a question. So do you guys require observation hours? If so, how many? And are study abroad hours accepted as well? Like for example, I got some hours in Mexico from a PT over there, if that counts.
Yeah, so we only require 10, and the 10 hours are self-declared, right? So it really doesn't matter where you see those. Um, and it doesn't matter if you have 300 or 10. It's no better. It's just to check the box, you got your hours. We kind of let that go a little bit after the COVID situation because places wouldn't let students in anymore. So we really don't put a big focus on that. The only reason we want the 10 hours is because we want people, when they make a career choice, understand why they're doing physical therapy. And so seeing some clinicians at work, can confirm that choice. But it's not one of our big criteria. And when it comes down to the ranking, it doesn't count.
All right, thank you.
Probably shouldn't have told you that, but it is what it is. Okay. Any other questions? So let me ask a question. Oh, go ahead. Sound like somebody was going to say something.
There's actually a question in the chat, and it says, can you briefly explain the equation that you guys use to determine if someone gets in an interview?
Okay, so everybody who meets the criteria of the GRE and the two GPAs, a 3.2 and a 3.0, will get an interview. So there's no formula there. But what we do based on historical evidence, they created a formula in which there's a multiplier for the GRE and for the different GPAs, and that leads to a score. And that is the ranking score that we use to make offers. So what we used to do years ago, we went from the top down. We don't really do that anymore. We now say we have the upper group, the middle group, and the lower group, and we make equal offers in each group, right? So we fully understand. Just think about it. You first come to college, and you don't really know what you're going to do yet, and sometimes you are not as focused, and your grades might be a little affected, but it doesn't make you a bad student. Of course, no matter where you apply, the better your grades are, the better chance you have to get to that round of interviews and maybe even past that. So Number wise, I looked at PTCast earlier. We have about 650 people that indicated FTCU potential choice. We have about 110 completed um, application and verified by PTCast, and we have a class of 30. And I would say over the last 3 years, 4 years, we have interviewed about 100, 110. Good. I hope that kind of answers your question, Jenna. Okay, then the next question is a certain score you have to get for the GRE. No, it's so yes, that's a good question. So we do not look at your total score. We look at the 35 percentile for those two scores and the 3.5 in the writing. Now, let's say you don't score 35% or 30%. There's two things to know is you can take the GRE as many times as you want. So my suggestion always is take it early so you know what the test is about. And then when you want to improve your score, you can take it again. And it doesn't matter if the whole test might not be better, but that one component is. That's actually how it's being reported to us. Um, Second component is if you score, let's say, that 30, and on the other side you scored a 40, and the rest you make, you can still apply because you're competing against others, right? So let's say possible, right? And theoretically that you're in a large group that maybe had a 30, then you can still qualify. So don't let that deter you. If you meet our numbers, you're guaranteed an interview. If you don't meet our numbers, that doesn't mean you wouldn't get an interview. It just depends what the people that you're competing against, what they have. So Cassidy, does that answer your question? Okay, Faith, it's a good question, and that's a challenge. I will tell you. Um, as most programs are going more to, some form of holistic interviewing process and trying to say, I think we all know that when you take the ATC to come or the SAT to go to college, is that guaranteeing that you're going to be a good student? Is a GRE really guaranteeing me that you're going to be a good student? There's a lot of questioning of that's actually valid, right? So we are we are spending quite some time um, trying to get to know people in that interview process. And of course, it's that one snap in time, but we do a couple of things that we have found that work for us. So you do a group activity, and we just kind of want to see when you have conversations with different faculty members, we want to try to kind of learn a little bit about you. I think those folks that um, you know are able to talk past the standard, we all kind of know these standard questions people sometimes ask, but just, talk about yourself and your interest and how life has looked for you and why physical therapy. Those are important components, I think, when you go to any interview. So Faith, does that give you a bit of an idea? So I kind of didn't answer that. What stands out, right? What stands out is that person who's just all around um, and you we have 10 faculty members, so that's not a nice thing about our program. We have 10 faculty members, we have 30 students coming in, so that's a pretty good ratio, right? um, so you will, during the interview, meet every faculty member, and every faculty member will meet you. So the one that stands out is obviously who impresses all 10 of us. Now, I'm not going to give you the secret how to do that. Okay, Nick, do you offer sports clinical rotations? So what we do in our clinical rotations, so the answer is yes. But what we do in our clinical rotations, we have, if you think 30, 30, 30 in the cohort, so a total of 90, we have 476 clinical affiliations, pretty much in every state. We do have a very, what we feel, rigorous process on picking sites. You're there to learn. You're not there to produce. We want to make sure that you become a very all-round clinician. We do locally work with the Boston Red Sox, Minnesota Twins. We have had some experiences with some soccer teams. Um, Locally, though, it's only really the Boston Red Sox and the Twins, and especially in spring training in the spring semester, most of the PT students that go there will go there for the full semester instead of breaking it up and going to other sites. It does work though that people put in a preference like a 1, 2, 3, and then the clinical coordinator meets with everybody and makes that determination who goes where. Um, as the program director, I don't get hardly any complaints about where people go. So it must work out okay with the sport affiliations that we have. We, um, when I think about, we've had a couple people that went on to a sports residency after our program, and they were all very pleased with the clinical rotations we have. We mandate in pretty much early on in your clinical rotation that you do an acute care situation. Um, so I think that there would be enough opportunity when I think about what other people and how they feel. So you do have a choice, but of course you're competing with spots. If we have 30 people that want to go to the Boston Red Sox, obviously that's not going to happen, right? So Nick, does that help you out a little bit? Sophia, good question. When is the last time a program cared about what you thought? No, just kidding. Um, so, it's funny you asked that. In the first year, our students are on campus from 8 o'clock in the morning till 5 in the afternoon, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday. In the second year, the on-campus time changes a little bit, it's a little bit less. And in the third year, you're only really on campus that fall semester and 2 weeks in the spring semester. So when you're on clinic, you cannot come to campus, but you still have to do didactic work, and we do that in the online format. So students like the variety of having certain things that they can do, asynchronous to an extent. It's a little bit different than traditional education, maybe in undergrad, where the whole course is online. Our students are on campus all the time, right? We are very big in practicing things. We have open lab times, Wednesday afternoon, Friday afternoon, and we expect our students to be in the lab. So those online things are done in the weekends and in the evenings, and whenever you can find some time. So I don't get much complaints about the online component. Um, yeah, our students are just very busy. So Sophia, does that help you a little bit? And balancing it out, the program is quite balanced. So I think we have done that for you. It's a good mix. Um, I don't get many complaints in the exit interviews that I've done over the last couple of years that that's a problem. What is a problem, though, and I think that's something you guys need to really work on before you get to a grad school, is your own work-life balance. How are you going to handle that load? What are you going to do for you? We have a lot of our students that, for instance, room with other PT students. I'm not sure if I'm always a fan of that because you need to be able to step away from this thing from time to time and just, go do something else and go for a walk or go sit on the beach or whatever you like doing, or go work out. And if it's PT 24 hours, you do burn out, and we do see our students, struggle the longer they're in grad school because it's quite a commitment, and I know you will never be ready no matter what I tell you, and um, grad school is a challenge. So, Sophia, does that help you a little bit? Brianna, so this is what we do. As we do rolling make admission offers on a rolling basis starting somewhere at the end of December, January, early January. When people accept us, we put you in a Facebook group. At least currently it was Facebook. That might become some other media at some point. And in that group, we first of all have an opportunity to have classmates meet each other, and that's where the housing discussion will take place. So it's not that we find you housing, but we have quite some seniors in our program that are leaving, and they might look, whoever is in those houses might look for the next person. So typically that goes quite well, and I would say we have 90% of the students housed before they got there. At least they take care of it, obviously. So that doesn't seem to be a very big problem. There's always on-campus housing, um, but graduate students typically do not do that. They don't go sit in a dorm. We've had only one student one semester that did that option, but typically they team up with others. So we do connect people with people, and that's kind of as far as the program goes. So we facilitate that a bit. So Brianna, does that help you out? Okay, great. Okay, and Elisa, do you have a class? Yeah. So the answer is no, because we do not. So when you talk about prosthetics or orthotics, we do not have separate classes for components, right? So just as we don't have ortho 1, 2, and 3, we don't have an orthotics class or a prosthetics class, but we do have an amputation case. And in the amputation case, you're going to obviously talk about prosthetics. In our pediatric cases, we talk about orthotics for infants and small children. In our ankle case, we talk about orthotics as it comes down to the adult and foot position and those kind of things. So we don't have separate classes on these things. It's embedded throughout the curriculum in a variety of places. So I hope that kind of answered that question for you. Do we have a cadaver lab? We do actually. So Caitlin, I'm assuming you enjoy doing wet dissection. We spent the first semester, you do a full body dissection in Movement Science 1, starts in August, you finish in December. We team that, so you do the dissection on Tuesday and Thursday, and then on Friday you do a palpation on the outside of the structure on the same structure that you dissected. So we get a carryover from the anatomy part to the palpation part, the more PT part. We have 8 cadavers, although this year is a little challenge because apparently there's a shortage of cadavers in the state of Florida. But we typically have 8. And we share the cadavers with the PA students. They do pretty much the abdominal cavity, we do the musculoskeletal system. Besides the cadavers, just to tell you, we also use technology. We have 2 anatomy tables for our students. And we use some apps on people's phones to kind of we recommend to me. Pretty cool apps nowadays as it comes down to the 3D, which I bet you have all seen before. Okay, resources. Jasmine is a good question. So we have our counseling services for students that's free available, um, and that ranges anywhere from through counseling sessions to stress management to practice exam anxiety to medication management, and that's free on campus. What we try to do is make sure that students, when they come in, you're assigned a faculty mentor, that your connection with that mentor is good, so you can have these discussions very early on. We'd like to make sure that people are in a good place early, and not report this to us, when an exam might not have gone as good as they thought it should go. So we do have that on campus. We have adaptive services for those people that need adaptations, which is probably something that you guys are familiar with now as well. That's pretty standard. Um, yeah, so I think communication is the biggest thing that you have to do is when you reach that point or you think you're heading for that point, and people reach out, then we can help you and connect you across campus or even outside campus if that's something people prefer. Um, but that in graduate school is a huge problem. Is that burnout? You don't realize how much time you're spending and how much your habits are going to change because there's so much to learn. And then when people finally realize that maybe they haven't spent enough time on themselves, it's sometimes a little bit of struggle to get out of there. But we say often, um, we're on the same team as you are, right? I mean, we're proud to say that 100% of our students um, graduate, right? And we can post it on our website. But that only works if you work with us. If we dare to fail you, then that's obviously not going to work. So we're on the same team. So once people realize that grad school is a little different than maybe this undergrad scenario where maybe faculty members are a little bit more removed from you as a person, we really want to make sure that everybody gets over the finish line in a healthy and good way. So we're kind of in that a little bit together. So Jasmine, I hope that kind of answers you a little bit there, but it's a good question. Sophia, so in the undergraduate, it's a requirement at FDCU to graduate. In the graduate school, it's not. So we do not judge if people do or do not participate in community service. We have a PT program to run, and that's what we judge you on. Um, what we see from our students is those students that connect to the community, they find additional enjoyments, and especially if they're interested in a particular field. So let's say you're interested in intellectual disabilities, let's say whatever it might be. We have a group that focuses on that. We have adaptive sports days for them, so people volunteer in that. We have people go, to give you an example, to Parkinson's and kickboxing or Parkinson and table tennis. So by getting involved, they see that patient group that they have an interest in and might want to work with later. And doing something in that form, it seems very rewarding. We have always students that volunteer for Special Olympics, and they come back and they're just energized and seeing what as a professional you can bring to people, and it's sometimes simple things. But we do not judge anybody on that, nor is it a requirement. What we do have is what we call a portfolio, where we ask people to keep track as they go through the program what they have done, and you do have to submit that before graduation. It's a graduation requirement, and service is a component, but service is very, very wide. If you participate in a research project, it's considered service, right? So anything outside the program is considered service, and I've never met a student who didn't satisfy that portfolio need. But I think when you become a professional, part of being a professional is giving back. And it's one of the values that the APTA has as well. And it could be anywhere from pro bono services to going on missions or whatever this might look like in your future career. So starting that process early on as a student, I think is creating a good habit. But like I said, it's not graded or anything like that. We don't force anybody to do things. So Sophia, did that help you? Okay, any other questions? Okay, Brooke, you're already thinking past PT school. Good. Um, so we actually used to have an orthopedic residency. We discontinued that. Um, so we do not have residencies at FTCU anymore. We do have some orthopedic and neurology residency at a local hospital that we work with quite a bit. But we don't have a program in-house anymore. Okay, Caitlin. So the invitations actually come through PTCast. Yes, there will be an email, and we'll give people X amount of days to respond, and then we'll reach out if we don't hear from you. But it will be through the email process. We find, I don't know what you guys are thinking, but people don't respond to phone calls. You're not the phone call generation no more, right? It's text or email. It's just easier. And I shared it with you. I don't like answering the phone either. So we really have gone to email 100%, years ago, and it never really seems to be a problem. Okay, let me see there. To do's by email. Yep. Okay, so Brianna, here's a good question. So, you should apply for PT program in the summer a year before you start in August, right? So that let's say if you do a normal 4-year program, that means when you in your starting your senior year, you should apply. Now, most programs want you to apply having the GRE done. So now you're talking in your junior year. So my suggestion is do it early in your junior year and see what your score is. If your score satisfies standards, then you're great. If not, you have opportunities to take it again. If you go to Kaplan, is a great book. It's probably one of the best for prep for GREs, for the tier exam. It's I don't have it laying here. I would show it to you, but it's called Kaplan is the company, and they have an interactive model, and you can take practice exams, and it really would help you to do something like that. Um, some people say just take it and see what happens, but you really should think about that early on. If you time it, your junior year, probably a good time to start. I hope that answers the recommendation for the GRE prep. And then Annalisa, I hope I say that right. Our interviews are in person. And we, again, in the whole COVID scenario, yes, we did some Zoom stuff, but we just like to see you. And it's so much harder behind the TV screen, right? So we do make people come. And I will tell you if you got an invite and you come or you want to come and then for some kind of reason, unless it's a legitimate reason, you don't come, you kind of come off our list. We do feel that it is important to meet people in person. And we have people flying in from other states for interviews. So especially those in Florida could probably make it. And that's one of the reasons why we don't do an hour interview because it's a long travel for many of you. So our interviews are, 4.5 hours. Another thing that we do is part of the interview is you interacting with current students. Because, like again, like I said, it's important that you interview us as well, and nobody gives you better information than actual students. So I hope that answered your question. Okay, so then we have Nicole. So there are some financial aids available for graduate students. Obviously, the student loans. What we do have is a unique program to our graduate studies. It's called tuition support. And this is focusing primarily on in-state students. FGCU, as far as I know, as it comes down to grad school, we are the only state school, if I'm not mistaken, that after 1 year of residency in the state of Florida, you now count for us as an in-state student for the remainder of your school career with us. So that only at first year you might be an out-of-state student if that would be your situation. But the fact that you're all here makes me assume that you're all in Florida already, so that shouldn't be a problem. So we have tuition support. So this year, the university gave us $130,000. And what we do with the $130,000, we for those people that applied, because obviously you have to apply for it. We had about 36 students that applied out of the, let's say, 90. And so it's about a 1/3. We divide that money over 3 semesters. So this semester, a lot of people got 5 credits for free, although it's not really for free. So what we say to you is like, look, if we give you 5 credits worth $290, which is the bare fee of the credit, you owe us 10 hours of work. So you're going to work for the department or for a faculty member or whatever it might be, and that's about 30 hours, almost 30 hours, $30 an hour, which is pretty good pay, I think, for a student. And you help out the department in some formal way. And that is always, outside your studies come first, obviously, right? So our students do a variety of things. Um, anywhere from we have some first year students that do the laundry of the linens that we use in the lab. We have a student that comes in and cleans the lab. We have people that help with the administrative tasks, shredding, making files, those kind of things. So there's a lot to do across the college that our students are actively engaged in. And again, um, it's almost kind of a form of service, but you do get paid for it, so that's kind of nice. So we do have some of that. Um, Florida Gulf Coast is doing a lot of things to help students. Our undergraduate rate, we had 45% of students last year graduating from FGCU debt free. So there is definitely opportunities there. And like I said, we're not the most expensive as it is. So Nicole, I hope that kind of gives you a little bit of idea. There are some, when you come in, there are some scholarship opportunities you can apply for, and you do that once for the time that you're in the program. So we had a foundation that looked at the geriatric population, and if you expressed in that application process that you were interested in that population when you start working, they gave $1 million to the PT program a couple years ago. So then proportionally, people have gotten some scholarships out of that deal. So there's definitely opportunities. Okay, Jenna, that's a good question. So you asked the percentage of people that are invited to the interviews that actually go to the interview or go to school with us. Um, so the if you say when we invite people for an interview, I would say 90+% comes to the interview. We've had some health situations or family situations, and those are very acceptable. We might put you in the next group, but you have to come up with a pretty decent reason of, why you can't make it. Because, it's the same as if you're an employer and you invite somebody for a job interview and they cancel, are you going to be interested in that employee? That's how you got to look at it, right? From here forward, it's all about professionalism. But there are very good reasons why people can make it. Now, from the 100 people we interview, we take a class of 30. So if that gives you an idea. Um, so the interviews have shifted, Sophia, from we used to do what we used to refer to as speed dating, is that you go to every faculty member and you spend 5-7 minutes with them. So we have a little bit of both. We do a group. So let's say we invite 30 students, you're going to be divided into groups. And these groups do things, including, meeting faculty. We have sometimes where we do the whole group together. So it varies a little bit year to year. And we do it based on feedback we get. You will have a little bit of writing assignment as well that you do with pen and paper, actually. I don't know if you guys still know what that is, but simple pen and paper, no technology. So we do a little bit of both, Sophia. Okay, any additional questions? Okay, Carlo, that's a good question. So FDCU does not penalize anybody when they did their prerequisite. So if you did them 15 years ago, we don't really care. So we don't have that 5-year rule as some other people might have. We just like you to have, because remember it goes into a formula, right? So if you have only, let's theoretically it's not possible. Let's say you have 25% of your prereqs done when you apply. You're competing against people who might have them all done, right? So just keep that in mind. But we do not penalize anybody who had prereqs done a long time ago. You can actually say that might be a very motivated learner because that learner is coming back to school and maybe doing a second career or whatever they might want to do. We like the diversity in our students. Okay, any other questions? So another thing maybe for you all to consider, and I don't know how you guys do that with your group, but we would welcome you all to come and visit us, get a tour maybe, or for those interested, I have a lot of prospective students that come to my class. We can talk about it, we can show you the most wonderful pictures, but maybe you should come see it. So if you're interested in FTCU and you send me an email, I'll be more than happy to arrange maybe on a Friday. Typically is when I have labs. We bring people in the lab and you have an opportunity to talk to students and to participate in that lab just to kind of see how we do things. Sometimes, looking in the kitchen gives you a much better idea, especially when you have to make these choices between a variety of programs. So everybody's welcome. Just send me an email if that's what you want to set up, or as a group, if you want to visit, we can set something up and guide you around campus. So campus is not very big, so you can get to kind of see FTC as a whole pretty easily. So, Katie, if you ever want to arrange something like that, we can definitely do that.
Yes, yeah, we've been talking about maybe wanting to do that in the spring semester, so I'll definitely let Piper know and we'll definitely email you.
Perfect. So let me see if I can figure this out, how to do this email thing. To all, right? Think you can all see it now. So if you have any questions about anything as it relates, obviously, to FTCU, send me an email. Um, it doesn't have to be immediately now, but even if you start in the application process and you want some clarifying questions, just reach out to us. And like I said, come visit if you have an opportunity.
Thank you so much.
No problem. So
Thank you.
good luck, everybody, in your journey, and hope we see you soon.
Yes.
Okay.
Good
This is
one. Bye.
great. Have a good one. Bye bye.